Welcome to Diaspora UA channel. Today Yuri Kondarevich and Bogdan Borovets will tell you some news from Ukraine. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky shared some worrying news, and it's very important because Russia seems to be planning something dangerous at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Yeah, there is a significant news. This is really important. Basically, what we learned that the Russians are planning a terrorist attack on the Ukrainian nuclear power plant. The results of this, the end result of this terrorist attack, would be devastating for not just Ukraine but for the entire Europe and even the United States. This is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. So the end result, the casualties, the future generations that will feel the impact on their land, on their lives, on their health, is just unimaginable.
Yeah,
so,
it's I'm sorry. Putin's army has mined a nuclear power plant, according to Intel, and President Zelensky actually says that he's preparing to blow it up. It will cause huge radiation leak. It's scary thought, since radiation doesn't care about country borders. It goes where the wind takes it, and of course it can take radiation to NATO countries, and United States will have to be involved sooner or later. Also, it seems Russia has already caused a similar disaster, blowing the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station before, showing that they are not scared to carry out such harmful action. Despite our warnings, we were warning about similar things last year, and it's still happening. And Zelensky said, according to this intel, Russia is taking advantage of this nuclear power plant, using it to launch attacks on nearby cities. They even placed some Russian soldiers there already. And the threat is really terrifying because of this radiation release. And we know also this situation, things in the Zaporizhzhia plant are really shaky, and the aftermath of disaster could be really horrible. Instead of, international society get involved, I don't see any reaction yet. Don't forget also Dnipro River falls into the Black Sea, so other countries will be affected too, not NATO countries. And it seemed like Russia is still using this situation to scare the whole world and push Ukraine around. They are making this problem, blackmailing the whole world society. And people living near the Zaporizhzhia plant thinking about getting out of there. And hopefully Ukrainian government will let them know if the things will get worse. I hope so.
Yeah, and currently people in Ukraine are storming pharmacies. They are emptying, they are clearing the shelves from iodine. People know what to do in the case that this thing happens, and they know the Russian regime, the fascist Russian regime, is a barbaric one. They have no soul. They will do anything in their power to destroy, to kill, to cause mass casualties. So we wouldn't be surprised if this happens. The question remains what the Biden administration is going to do. Whether the Biden administration is going to be able to prevent such a horrific terroristic act. Because recently we had the dam which exploded and caused disaster for the Ukraine's ecosystem. Now we have something much more serious. Unfortunately, the United Nations, the NATO countries, and even the Biden administration wasn't really vocal about what happened in Kakhovka. Now we are facing something much, much more serious. The question remains whether the Biden administration is serious about fighting, helping Ukraine to fight the fascist Putin regime and putting the stops to these atrocities happening every single day.
Exactly. And I know you have some other news about the situation at the front.
Yeah. What happened is this, we've been approached by many Americans who have no clue what's going on in Ukraine. They believe that now Ukraine has all the tools possible, all the tools available to them to win. Unfortunately, it's not the case. The Ukraine does not possess sufficient weaponry. The Ukraine does not possess what it needs to successfully finish this war as a victorious country, as a winner. The United States has been reluctant into providing sufficient weaponry to Ukraine, and there are many reports. Such people as former General Ben Hodges, which is a senior advisor now, but he used to be the commanding general of the United States Army in Europe. He's being critical about the Biden's efforts in Ukraine. He has been saying all along for the past 16 months that the United States has to step up and give more weapons to Ukraine, specifically the atomic weapons, or it's called the advanced tactical missile systems. Ukraine has been begging for this for the past 16 months, as well as for the F-16s, fighter jets. It's crucial. This is what they need. This is what they need to survive. And we are talking about democracy at stake. We're talking about Ukraine fighting the war, losing hundreds and thousands of soldiers daily, civilians, and not being able to answer on those barbaric attacks. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen to Ukraine, what's going to happen, because I'm ready to cry. Now we heard about Zaporizhzhia power plant, nuclear power plant. Just a week ago, we had Kakhovka Dam situation, and the Biden administration didn't even give the clear message for the terrorists that they will be punished. It's just horrible. It's horrible what's going on, and people, especially Americans, they have no clue what's happening. They think that Ukraine received $113 billion allegedly.
That's not
allegedly
true.
It's not true. It's not even close. As a matter of fact, the Foreign Committee, I'm gonna open it up. The Committee on Foreign Affairs had a hearing on this matter. The hearing of the on Ukraine Oversight Accountability, and they figured that allegedly only 20% of the funding is going directly to the Ukrainian government in the form of direct budgetary assistance. This is not what we've been told all along for the past 16 months. This is not what the media has been pushing on us, telling us that allegedly Ukraine receives everything it needs. It does not. Ukraine has insufficient weapon supply. Currently, we have 3 programs in place, actually 4 programs in place, but just one of those programs does not work, which is the Lend-Lease Act, which was signed into law and passed on May 9, 2022. Now we have 3 ways we supplying weapons to Ukraine. The first, commonly known as USAA, which is Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, and we are dedicating big, huge funds as we believe it is. 2.1 billion recently was allocated to that specific cause. Unfortunately, the USAA takes a lot of time to accomplish. It's a process. It's a process of it's a bidding process for all the contractors to apply for the bidding process, for being able to get the contract from Pentagon to supply the weapons for Ukraine. It takes up to 4 years to accomplish. The other one, which is known as the foreign military assistance, the same thing. Long story, it takes years to accomplish. The other one, which is the most quickest one, is the PDA, Presidential Drawdown Authority, and it's been used for 37 times since 2021, summer 2021, for Ukraine, specifically for Ukraine. Unfortunately, just recently learned that there was the accounting error for 6.2 billion. Now the Republicans are asking, what is going on? What is going on with Ukrainian help? 6.2 billion. It's a huge amount of money, given that Ukraine received, the keyword received 22 billion in total for the past 16 months in terms of military assistance. So in 2022, Ukraine received 12 billion, out of which 2.6 was the accounting mistake. Now, in 2023, the United States supplied Ukraine with $10 billion worth of military assistance. Actually, the military assistance, which actually was received, not committed, not promised, received 10 billion, out of which 3.6 billion was the accounting mistake. Now, it's a questionable thing. I'm not going to judge what's going on. I have my own personal opinion, but I'm not going to share it. But I think this is quite suspicious. And the correct thing to do would be to ask questions. What is going on with Ukrainian help? Where are the alleged 113 billion? What's happening with the military assistance? Because this is basically what Ukrainians need. They need sufficient weapons to win. All of the generals, all of the military staff, all of the military people, they all agree that Ukraine has insufficient weapon supply. It's either delayed or promised. There is a huge gap between what Ukraine needs, what Ukraine gets, and when it happens, it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and people are dying by thousands. So what we have to propose for this whole mess, Lend-Lease law. It was signed. It was an act. The full name of this is Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act of 2022. Unfortunately, it's not working. The Biden administration has been reluctant in initiating the law, Lend-Lease law, which has a provision specifically stating that the government of Ukraine should receive those needed weapons and military equipment as soon as possible. The law is incredible in terms of the historical meaning. As we know, the last time this specific law was used during World War II, now we passed the same law. 100 senators voted in. Biden signed into law, but he's been reluctant into using the law, into supplying Ukraine with sufficient weaponry to win. Now,
to protect civilian, I'm sorry, just interrupting you. Originally, it was initiated by Senator Cornyn. He initiated it to protect civilian population from Russian aggression, even before the Russian invasion. And later on, they just renamed it Defense for Democracy. But initially, it was just to protect regular civilian people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And it even says that the supplying the defense articles of the government of Ukraine or to the governments of Eastern European countries impacted by the Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine. Now, the whole thing gets to the bigger image, to the bigger point. What do we get as the Americans if this law works? What do we get back of this? Well, first and foremost, the war stops. Currently, the impact on the entire world is just huge. We have African countries which are basically starving because of the whole thing that Russia caused in Ukraine, the food crisis. Now we have inflation in the United States. We have just crazy prices for gas and oil. Well, there are other economic issues that the United States is facing, but the biggest thing is Ukraine. Now, many Americans may ask the same simple question. Why should we care about Ukraine? We have our own problems, which is the border crisis, which is the economic situation, the mortgages, which are crazy and through the roof, the inflations, the bank interest rates. Well, the answer is this. We promise to protect Ukraine if they agree to give us their nukes. They did. They gave away over 1,900 nuclear warheads. But it was a ballistic intercontinental nuclear warheads. They gave away their supersonic bombers. We destroyed it ourselves. Our caterpillars was in Kiev and destroying those specific supersonic bombers. Now they are begging for fighter jets, for F-16 to protect their civilian population, to protect their soldiers. We just ought to help them. We must help them to win. The Biden administration, the reluctancy is just crazy. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's behind this. I don't know what's happening in those hallways, behind those closed doors, what they've been discussing and what plan they have for Ukraine or for the United States in that capacity. But my biggest problem, the biggest issue that I have with this whole thing is if it's not going to stop in Ukraine, the Russian Federation, their fascism, they will go further away from Ukraine. They will go into NATO countries, which is Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. And In the primetime television, Russian state-run propaganda machines, the Russian politicians are claiming that they will be rebuilding German wall. They're calling for Cold War era #2. They're calling for the new Cold War. They are talking about nuking Great Britain. They're calling about stopping at La Manche, France. They're calling about occupying the entire Europe. Now, why should we care? Well, the United States is a part of NATO, Article 5. If NATO countries gets attacked, we will be forced by this obligation, by this agreement, to send our troops, to send our military personnel to Europe to fight with Russia. So why wouldn't we just give what Ukraine needs in terms of the military equipment, sufficient military equipment to win? What happens if they win? It all stops. It will not spread across the Europe. We will not be forced to send our troops to fight with Russians. And at the same time, the economy will have a boost. The world economy currently, goes through some horrific sacrifices because of the war in Europe. The Ukrainian economy is destroyed. It has some just horrific and horrible consequences of the war that has been going on for the past 16 months. Now, what we are calling for, we are calling to implement the Lend-Lease law, the act, initiation of the law. We're calling to unlock the law, to supply Ukraine, to pump Ukraine with all the military equipment. We are not believing the Biden administration, which is claiming that we will provoke Russia. I mean, what they are to provoke? They did everything. We were told that they will not. Now we are facing the situation. They can just bomb the nuclear power plant. What else? What else to be worried about? Just give the Ukrainians they need, the articles, the military equipment they need, and this whole horrible, horrific thing will stop. Ukrainian soldiers are brave. The Ukrainian soldiers are capable. They're extremely capable. They prove to be extremely efficient in using Western weapons, weapon systems. They prove that they don't need even some extended time to learn how to use it. They know how to use it. They learn it quick and efficient. All they need is just sufficient weapons to win. We ought to provide them with the equipment and military articles that they need, and the whole thing will stop.
I would like to add that if we use Lend-Lease, Ukraine could get even the Cold War era military equipment that Ukrainian military asking for, because it's still good against Russian army, and the United States have a lot of this equipment in storages in warehouses because they were preparing for to fight with Soviet Union in Cold War era, and they have a lot of these tanks and planes and everything that are obsolete for United States Army. In this case, we don't have to spend extra taxpayers' money to produce new weapons, and we can avoid delay if we use this law because it's already made. So it's a win-win situation. And we know that a couple times Bill Clinton, president of United States, who actually convinced Ukraine to give up nuclear weapons, he said he feels horrible because he knows if he wouldn't push Ukraine, Russia would never attack Ukraine with such a power, such a not just nuclear power, but other equipment, planes and everything. And now he regret about this. He said he knew later that Putin will attack Ukraine, but if he regrets and he accepted, like realized and he made mistakes, why United States not take responsibility for this? and it gives really bad example for other countries who are trying to make nuclear weapons right now, like Iran or other countries. They're trying to gain these nuclear weapons because they see it doesn't work. Ukraine got an arm, and we see the results now.
Yeah, it's a great point to make, and I would just add to that the current scarcity and the reluctance of the Biden administration to supply adequate weapons to Ukraine have prompted many to reconsider the necessity of acquiring nuclear weapons of mass destruction. I mean, the whole thing has been going on in Middle Eastern countries, in China, obviously, and Iran and many other countries has been now vocal about the need to protect them. The other thing is even more horrible to observe as someone who cares deeply for the United States and someone who was born in Ukraine. That's that many countries now question whether the United States can be trusted. The United States promised to protect Ukraine in 1994 when they signed the Budapest Memorandum, and they promised to protect Ukraine's territorial integrity and to protect Ukraine in the case of invasion. Now Ukraine begs for F-16s and for ATACMS, the missiles, advanced missile systems, which we have, but we are reluctant in providing them. I mean, the Biden administration has been reluctant. Now, why the whole thing is going on currently, and now why the resolution is not visible to us? Because the whole media, I would call it just the mass media industrial complex, has been working over time to surpass something called Lend-Lease. You wouldn't be able to find the recalls or the mentioning of the Lend-Lease law in the media as of now. As a matter of fact, the media has been reluctant when we try to call them and we try to get in touch with them and to get coverage for our meetings, semi-monthly meetings that we are holding by the White House. They're not showing up. They're not showing up to interview us or to show the group that's been there for more than 6 months now. Why? Because they received the order from the administration, I suspect, telling them to silence the whole thing. So it's even bigger. Now we are facing the situation where not just the administration unwillingness to comply with the law, because President Biden currently is breaking the law, the Lend-Lease law, but it's the other thing, the suppressing of any notion of the Lend-Lease in the media, which is even more horrible to me, because where does it going and when it will stop? Now, the other thing is, which I'll just read, because this is what we have been sharing with senators and Congress people. I called it the justification and factors influencing on the implementation of the Lend-Lease law. And it's simple. By actively supporting Ukraine, the need for U.S. troops to engage in conflicts in Europe will be minimized. On the other hand, the Lend-Lease is quick victory to Ukraine with small losses of the armed forces. The shorter the war, the more cities, towns, enterprises of Ukraine, infrastructure, lives of the civilian population, the Ukrainian soldiers, will be preserved. Therefore, the economy will recover faster, which is financed now in part at the expense of U.S. taxpayers. This is the big thing. So the longer the war is going on, the longer it continues, the bigger paycheck we would have to sign for Ukraine. So we are, as a country, the one who should do everything in our power to help Ukraine win. Not to promise 20% of Ukraine's land to Putin in exchange for peace. What Biden has been trying, and the media has published those accusations that allegedly Biden's administration has been in a secret talks with Putin, where they promised 20% of Ukrainian land in exchange for the peace agreement. Well, who are we to trust Putin? Well, the implementation of Lend-Lease arrangement will not have any impact of U.S. debt ceiling. It will not contribute for the debt ceiling, nor result in an increase in U.S. expenditures that will be reflected in the growth of U.S. debt. That's a big one. This is something we have in our stocks, the weapons. We can just ship them over to Ukraine to deal with their problem, to deal with Russians, and that would be it. Just ship them the weapons they need. We have plenty in stock. We have thousands of tanks just facing the sun, rooting in the middle of those, of Texas, of Nevada, and other places. Just ship them the weapons they need. This is my call. And we've been having our semi-monthly rallies by the White House since the 1st of January. Now it's been more than 6 months that the whole thing has been going on. So we ask you to join our meetings by the White House or tweet using Twitter, which is the platform proved to be bulletproof from the censorship. Tweet Biden, remind him about the Lend-Lease. Remind him that he is breaking the law. Ukraine needs sufficient weapons. We ought to help Ukraine to succeed, to win. Biden, stop stealing Ukraine's victory. Help them. Send them the weapons they need.
As you mentioned, we have meetings at the White House, and we have channel where we actually have live broadcast every 2 weeks, and next one we will be expecting in July 8, 9, but please follow our channel. We may change some schedule, but you can join us in our Twitter, Diaspora UA or Lend-Lease for Ukraine, and also we post in there our new information. Please support us, please support Ukrainian, because it's a matter of life and death and survival for them. You can help us also remind this for U.S. Congressman and Biden to unlock Lend-Lease for Ukraine.
Yeah, just spread the message around. Show it to your friends and family, and just keep it in mind that Ukraine is not getting what you are reading in the press. Not even close.
Yeah, and
Ukraine needs weapons, a lot of it. Russia has been spending 10 times, 20 times more than Ukraine on this whole war. It's in industrial warfare. It's time to face the reality, to help the Ukraine, to stop it, to win. Otherwise, it will spread across the Europe. We need to stop it. We need to help Ukraine, to give them everything they need, because they are dying, they are bleeding, they're losing their limbs, and we are playing politics in the White House. We are promising, but we are not delivering. It's time to stop this whole nonsense and give them what they need: F-16s, A-tanks, and many other things, such as Abrams tanks, in the quantities they need, not some 31 tanks when we have over 6,000 facing the sun. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Yuri. Keep getting the facts, stay safe, and never forget glory to Ukraine. Keep watching Diaspora UA. Thank you.
Thank you. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!